Hi, welcome to this webinar in which we'll be talking about your responsibilities as an advocate, specifically in schools and with the court. So we're going to first start with some basic principles about advocacy. First, being an advocate is actually one of the things you're signing up for. So if anyone ever gives you a hard time for speaking up for these kids and for advocating for them, just remind them that in the agreement you signed with DCFS, it actually requires this of you, your advocacy. So you're doing an advocacy, you're doing exactly what we want you to do. So a few hints for effective advocacy. This is probably one of the most emotional things you'll ever do. This is dealing with human relationships at the most vital level of children and parents and families and permanency. And so it's really easy to get caught up in the emotion of it. But in advocacy, it's ideal to just stick with the facts as much as possible. This is where documentation can be really helpful. That daily journal that we've encouraged you to keep, even if nothing eventful happens in any given day, writing that down. And just dedicating yourself to writing a few things every day, and certainly if something is of concern. And that will help remind you what the concerns are, what the supporting facts are, what the timelines are when you're discussing an issue that you feel needs to be addressed. Remind yourself that you are living with these kids. You have a view that really no one else has. The parents of the kids have had it because they have lived with them, but you are currently living with these kids and you're seeing how they are before visits and after visits in court. You're hearing the phone calls that they're engaged in with their parents. You're seeing some of the behavioral issues, some of the growth, some of the concerns you may have. So your voice really matters in this because you're representing a part of the child's life that many people don't have access to. Asking questions, the best advocate is an informed advocate. Advocating from a place of ignorance isn't going to be helpful to anyone. So the more information you have, you're going to have a lot, because as we talked about already, but asking more questions and getting those blanks filled in so you're presenting a fuller picture. Persistence pays off. We've all had that experience where there's been a problem, whether it's your refrigerator's broken or your car or something like that, and you're trying to get some help and you're really frustrated, but you keep calling, you keep sending emails, and finally there's that person that the doors magically open. So keep at it, and you're going to find the openings and the people that are going to be able to best help the child in your care. And then making sure you're getting support, that you're not having to do this all by yourself. We'll talk about that specifically in relationship to schools, but there is support out there. Use your caseworkers, use your resource family consultant, get your guardian ad litem involved. These are all people who care about the child and care about the situation too. Make sure that you're recruiting folks to help best advocate for the needs of the children in your care. Now, schools is probably the most common and sometimes the most difficult place to advocate for the kids. Now, if any of you listening have ever had occasion to help a child who's had special needs get the assistance in school, public school that they require, it can be challenging depending upon the district, the individual school, the administration. And so all of those things we just talked about are really essential here. So you're going to play the role of the parent. You're going to make sure you understand the homework assignments, and if the child is attending school and if there are any problems in the classroom and concerns the teacher may have, you're going to be working with the school about any testing that may be required for the child, both just the basic testing that all kids go through, or also some special assessment testing. And if there is an IEP that's determined is required, then you'll be involved in the IEP meetings, the 504 meetings. You'll be involved in those things. So you really represent the role of the parent in working with the schools. Now, you are limited to some degree because you're not the legal parent. And so if there are any concerns about that, that's where you're going to recruit that caseworker. Make sure you're keeping them informed of your advocacy with the schools. So if you need to ask them to step in, they already have an idea of what is going on. And then at the bottom of the page, I have highlighted, now you can't click on this, but there's a really great PDF document, a booklet that was put out several years ago. Lorianne Thorpe, who is a foster mom, an adoptive mom, also works for the Department of Education. She's incredibly knowledgeable. She put together a really informative booklet about the additional services that are available for kids in care. And so if you go on our website, so where you access this webinar, there are those 3 tabs, And that manual and other resources, make sure you click on that and look through the other things we've put on there. There's a lot of supporting information that's going to help you. It may not help you today, but it will help you later when you're confronted with some of these issues. And I've highlighted that booklet that I just referenced that Lorianne Thorpe did, the Educating Youth in State Care, is an excellent booklet. So make sure you know where that is. Either you've bookmarked it on your browser, maybe you've printed it out if you're kind of a person that likes paper, but you make sure you know where that is and you have access to that information. And then in our in-service webinar library, so what you're going through right now are the pre-service webinars, but as you're relicensing or as needed, we do have a webinar library of additional classes that will just help inform you even further, and you can also amass some of your in-service training hours. And Jeremy Sagers, who's the other trainer in Salt Lake, she put together, both she and her husband are educators and have worked with the school system. And she put together a really great webinar on working with the school system. And she lays out, the laws, the federal laws, the state laws, what the meetings are, how to best, interact with the school administration, some of the people that you can kind of recruit in the service of your child. So it's a really excellent webinar, and I take some time to watch that too, as you need it, and certainly you'll get credit for that for your in-service training hours too. And then, as I said, you're needing support. There are some exceptional groups out there, and once again, those of you who have had to do this before, many of you are aware of these. The Utah Parent Center is a statewide organization that they have excellent training online. You can get some webinars online. They have booklets, they have links. They also do a lot of classes in the community. I think most of the classes they do in the community might be on the Wasatch Front, but check their website out because they may have some in more of the outlying or more rural areas too. But it's an exceptional website. This is another one I'd really recommend making sure you have a bookmarked on your browser. Disability law. In Salt Lake, we usually bring them in at least once a year to do a class on knowing what the laws are around what the schools are required to provide. They're a great advocacy. I'm not sure about their availability statewide, but get on their website. If they aren't available in your area, I'm sure they would know who to refer you to in your area. And they're passionate about the work that they do. The interactions I've had with them is they're incredibly anxious to help children in care get the services they need and assist the foster parents in doing that. And then Allies with Families is an exceptional organization, and they have what they call family facilitators, I think that's the name. And this is also a statewide organization. And these facilitators can also help you kind of, putting the pieces together. Sometimes that's one of the hardest things about this is you're having to go out and kind of try to figure out what's available in the community, and they already know a lot of that stuff, and so they'll be able to help you make sure that your child is getting the services that they need. Now, court is another place where you can advocate. And court's a little bit of an interesting place because we all have very limited power in court. The judges hold an extraordinary amount of power, but we'd recommend that you attend the court hearings, once that child's in your care. Now, some of the hearings we have listed here may occur before the child is in your care. That shelter hearing, unless you're that first initial placement, that may occur before the child is in your care. The pretrial also sometimes may occur before the child's in your care. Just once again depends on, when that child comes into your care. But certainly those later hearings, the adjudication, the dispositional hearing, certainly if there's a termination hearing, any of those things, we'd really encourage you to be there. Your caseworker is supposed to inform you of those. Make sure you tell them right off that you want to be informed of when court is, and you can also get on and find out when those are available too. With your caseworker and your RFC. So make sure you're letting them know you want to know those things. And then once again, there's another website here that we have listed in our additional resources. And this actually goes through all of these listed hearings and tells you not only the timeline, but kind of what to expect at each one. And know that court is kind of like a hospital. It's kind of a time warp. Nothing really happens fast except for the stuff that has to. And so just plan on, if the hearing's at 10, get there early, plan on being there several hours because stuff happens and things get delayed and you know, it's never exactly the timeline you think it's going to be. So just plan that so that you're not too frustrated, because I know one of the hardest things about court is it doesn't always go according to the time schedule. And then as mentioned here, the caseworker is responsible to invite you. The child may also be requested to be at the court hearing. So that'll be negotiated with your caseworker and your guardian ad litem in the court. If you have concerns about the child being there, express those concerns. And the judges are different, guardian ad litems are different, you know, all of them are different as far as what they want to see. I know judges who really want to make sure the kids are there. You know, you think about it, they're making decisions that are affecting these kids' lives. They kind of want to see the kid, and I think that that's good. It also can be concerning if maybe the parents are going to be there and maybe they're coming from jail and they're going to be in orange jumpsuits and shackles, and that could be concerning. So let your caseworker know those things if you're concerned. And then a child or a youth who's 14 years or older, they have the right to address the court if they would like. So make sure the caseworker knows that, make sure the child in your care knows that, and then talk to the caseworker if the youth, and the guardian ad litem if the youth wants to do that. And then once again, back on this page that has the other resources, these 3 links that I've highlighted, that gives you just a lot more information about court, the timelines, what to expect at these hearings. So you have a kind of an idea of what's going to be happening at each of these hearings. And once again, we highly recommend you attend because there's a lot of things that happen there. Now, there'll be times when you'll be required to attend because you've been subpoenaed, and you may be subpoenaed to testify, and that is not an uncommon occurrence. It may not be a desired occurrence, but it certainly is not uncommon. And so we just put up some basic tips, and nothing on here is going to be surprising to any of you. You know, you're all, you know, professional people, you know what's expected of you in this kind of setting, but I'm just going to briefly go through them. Be early so we don't cause any additional delays. As we talked about, be prepared to wait. Make sure your cell phone is fully turned off. Obviously, you're not going to have your lunch while you're sitting in the courtroom or on the stand. You're going to dress in a manner that represents you and the children you're representing well. Obviously, organize and prepared any documentation you feel like you want to bring with you to remind yourself of things. You're standing when the judge enters the room. Of course, you're telling the truth. You're going to swear that you're doing that, speaking loudly and clearly. You always need to make sure your testimony is spoken because the court recorder can't record a nod or a shake of the head. So make sure you're speaking anything you're saying, anything you want to convey, being calm, polite, and sincere, even if you feel like you're being challenged. And I've known foster parents who feel like they, you know, maybe the defense attorney for the parents has been challenging of them, and that isn't a pleasant experience. But just remembering they're there to represent these parents, and the parents deserve representation, and it really isn't personal, although it may feel like that sometimes. Just try to take that deep breath and just remain calm in that situation. Number 12, this would be one that would be hard for me. I have a tendency to jump in because I think I know what someone's going to say, but wait until the question is fully asked before you respond, and try to respond only to what is being asked. Don't offer any extraneous information. If you need clarification, feel free to ask for that. You have the right to do that, and that way you're giving the most accurate answer instead of maybe an answer to a question that you misunderstood. And then if you don't know the answer or you can't remember, it's absolutely fine to say exactly that. I don't know, I don't remember. That in that case would be the most honest answer. So take some time and look at that supporting documentation. It will serve you well. You might want to just, you know, bookmark that site or that page on your browser so you can go back to it later and reference it, because once these kids come in your home, this is going to be information you're definitely going to want to have. So thank you very much. We're almost done. Only 2 more to go. Thank you.